Love Through the Glass. Chapter 1. Reflections. Rain traced lazy lines down the tall glass windows of Blake Veterinary Clinic, each droplet catching the late afternoon light like tiny shards of silver. Inside, the clinic buzzed with quiet efficiency, soft murmurs from the front desk, the occasional bark from a back room, and the ever-present scent of an antiseptic layered with lavender. Dr. Sienna Blake stood at her office window, arms crossed, her sleek ponytail unmoving despite the tension simmering beneath it. Dressed in tailored navy and ivory, she watched the city below with detached focus, until a sudden movement on the other side of the glass caught her eye. Outside, on a narrow platform 4 stories up, a man moved with the easy grace of someone used to heights and danger. His squeegee slid along the pane with smooth, practiced sweeps, clearing away streaks left by the storm rolling in. He wore faded jeans, a dark hoodie, and a safety harness strapped tight across his chest. What caught Sienna off guard wasn't his appearance, it was the way he looked up and saw her. For a moment, their eyes locked. He didn't flinch. He smiled, genuine, surprised, and a little amused. Sienna blinked, unsettled. Most people averted their gaze, thrown by her cold elegance or the rumours that trailed her like designer perfume. But not him. There was no calculation in his expression, no attempt to impress or shrink away. Just honesty. Then the wind picked up, forcing him to move along. The connection broke. Sienna turned back to her desk, annoyed at herself for lingering. She had charts to review, a dog in surgery recovery, and a fundraiser to plan. There was no time for distractions, especially not ones that wore paint-speckled boots and smiled like they saw through you. But outside, the storm worsened. Hours later, thunder cracked overhead as the city groaned under the weight of flooding streets and flickering lights. At the clinic, a gutter gave way, and water began pooling at the reception area. Staff scrambled, placing towels and buckets, but the damage was spreading fast. "Sienna, we need to shut down," her assistant called. "Not until we can move the animals." As chaos unfolded, the front door burst open, and in stepped the window cleaner, soaked and breathless. "Name's Liam," he said, wiping rain from his brow. "Saw the leak from the scaffolding. Figured you might need a hand." Sienna stared, caught off guard again. The storm roared behind him, but his calm was undeniable. For reasons she couldn't explain, she said, "Fine, but stay out of the way." He grinned. "Wouldn't dream of it." Neither of them realized that this storm had blown open more than just the clinic's roof. It had opened the first crack in a glass wall neither knew they'd built. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Glass. By morning, the Blake Veterinary Clinic looked like a war zone. The storm had ripped through parts of the roof, drenched the front office, and shorted 2 exam room lights. Sienna stood in the middle of it all, with her sleeves rolled up. Her pristine demeanour traded for damp clothes and a fierce determination to restore order. Liam arrived early, toolbox in hand and hair still damp from the lingering drizzle. "Heard you've got a roof that needs charming," he said, offering a crooked smile. Sienna didn't return it. "You're not licensed for major repairs." "I've done worse, trust me." She hesitated, something she hated doing, but then gave a brisk nod. "Fine, but don't interfere with patients or staff." "Wouldn't dream of it," he echoed, already pulling out his ladder. As the day wore on, Liam worked quietly and efficiently, moving through the clinic like he'd always belonged there. He patched the damaged ceiling, rerouted a drain pipe, and even fixed the broken light in exam room 3. The staff adored him within hours. Linda from reception brought him coffee. Jacob, the new shy intern, asked him about his tool belt. Even Pepper, the grumpy old retriever recovering from hip surgery, wagged her tail when Liam passed. But Sienna kept her distance. She focused on her patients, her clipboard, her boundaries. Until late afternoon, when she walked into the recovery room and found Liam crouched beside a large St. Bernard, whose breathing was laboured. She's not going to make it, is she? He asked softly. Sienna froze. The dog, Bonnie, who'd been declining all week. They'd tried everything. Meds, IVs, round-the-clock care. But sometimes even the best of hands couldn't stop the inevitable. No, she said quietly, she's not. He looked at her, not with pity, but with a quiet respect that unsettled her more than any flirtation would have. Sienna stepped closer, knelt beside the dog, and began gently stroking Bonnie's fur. Her voice was calm, almost a whisper. She was abandoned in a warehouse. We don't know how long she'd been there. She stopped eating 2 days ago. Liam watched as Sienna leaned down and pressed her forehead gently to Bonnie's. You're not alone, she whispered to the dog. You can rest now. When Bonnie's breathing finally stopped, the silence that followed was sacred. Liam stood frozen. He had expected Sienna to be cold, detached, clinical. But what he saw instead was something raw and painfully real. He didn't say anything, just quietly helped her wrap the dog in a soft blanket and carry her to the back. As they returned to the main hallway, Sienna wiped her hands and said nothing. Her face was unreadable again, but something had shifted. Maybe it was the way her eyes lingered on him a little longer than before. Or maybe it was the faint crack in her voice when she finally says, Thank you for being here. Liam simply nodded, resisting the urge to say something clever. Because even he knew some silences shouldn't be filled. Chapter 3. Coffee and Clashes. The scent of strong espresso lingered in the air as Sienna moved through the break room with her usual precision, carefully adding 2 sugars and the perfect splash of oat milk to her coffee. Liam sat on the worn couch nearby, sipping from a chipped mug that read, World's Okayest Handyman. Didn't peg you as someone who'd show up early, she said, without looking at him. Didn't peg you as someone who talks to window cleaners, he replied, with a smirk. Sienna shot him a warning glance, but Liam only grinned wider. Despite their prickly banter, he'd become a near-constant presence at the clinic over the past week. The structural damage had been more extensive than expected, and Liam had proven useful, too useful to dismiss, even if he irked her at every turn. They sipped their coffees in silence until Liam broke it. So, do you ever stop running the show? Or is control your coping mechanism? Sienna's brow arched sharply. Excuse me? He leaned back. It's just, you've got this fortress thing going on. Rules, routines, boundaries. You ever take a break and just live? She set her cup down with a little more force than necessary. I don't have the luxury of living on whims and just breathing. People count on me. Animals count on me. I don't get to be reckless. Reckless? He asked. Or real? Eyes locking with hers. That struck deeper than she cared to admit. Before she could respond, the sound of barking and a frantic meow echoed from the front hallway. Both of them rushed to the source. In the lobby, a wiry stray mutt had chased a terrified kitten inside. The dog was soaking wet and trembling with excitement, not aggression. The kitten, however, had wedged itself behind a row of chairs and was hissing like a wildfire. Jacob! Sienna called, snapping into command mode. Get a crate and towels. But Liam didn't wait. He knelt down, inching towards the kitten with slow, calm hands. Hey there, little lion. I know it's loud. You're okay. Sienna watched, expecting the kitten to bolt or scratch, but instead it paused. Liam extended a single finger, and the kitten cautiously sniffed, then, miraculously, climbed into his palm. Well, he said, standing up. Guess I've still got it. The staff applauded, impressed. Sienna crossed her arms. Cute trick, she muttered. Liam shrugged. It's not a trick. Animals just know who's bluffing. She met his gaze again, this time without the wall. Later that evening, the mutt, named Rufus by popular vote, curled up under Liam's workbench. The kitten, dubbed Whiskey, was nestled in a soft crate beside Sienna's desk. For the first time in a long time, the clinic felt less like a fortress and more like something warmer. Sienna hated it. Every time Liam was near, her carefully constructed life just felt a little more fragile, and she wasn't sure if she was terrified of it crumbling or desperate for it to. Chapter 4. The Other Side. The clinic had quietened for the evening. The chaos of the day faded into gentle murmurs and rustling fur. In the recovery room, the warm hum of machines soothed the resting animals as Sienna finished her last chart note. The click of the door caught her attention. "I brought someone with me," Liam said, stepping inside to reveal a girl no older than 16, with sharp eyes and a defiant stance. "Maddie," he said proudly. "My sister." Sienna blinked, caught off guard. "She doesn't look thrilled to be here." "I'm not," Maddie said, arms crossed, "but someone has to supervise him." Liam ruffled her hair with a grin. "She's visiting for the weekend. Thought I'd show her the glamorous world of urine samples and fur balls." Sienna smirked despite herself. "We do offer behind-the-scenes chaos." Maddie glanced round, her eyes falling on a recovering greyhound with a cast. "What happened to him?" Sienna knelt beside the dog. "Hit by a car. We've been nursing him back slowly. His name's Juno." Maddie's face softened. She crouched too, gently touching the dog's side. "Hey, Juno. You're kind of a badass, huh?" Sienna chuckled, an unfamiliar sound, even to herself. Liam watched the interaction, something unreadable flickering in his expression. Over the next few hours, Maddie didn't leave Juno's side. She helped change a bandage, sat quietly with the sedated cat, and even asked Sienna questions about animal physiology. "She's got a bedside manner than some of my interns," Sienna admitted to Liam as they stood near the door. "She's had to grow up fast," he said. "Since our mum passed, she's been kind of floating. I keep trying to anchor her." Sienna nodded, understanding more than she let on. Later that night, after Maddie had fallen asleep on the couch in the staff lounge, Sienna stepped outside to find fresh air. The city buzzed softly beneath a sky trying to clear. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "Dinner with the Porters this Friday. Neil is back from Geneva. Don't be late. Wear navy." Sienna stared at the screen. Neil Porter, heir to a tech empire. Handsome, vapid, healthy. A perfect match by her mother's standards. A useful connection for their foundation. A distraction for the tabloids. A leash disguised as a date. Inside, Liam helped cover Maddie with a blanket. He spotted Sienna returning, eyes clouded. "You good?" he asked. She hesitated. "Fine." But Liam caught the flicker of something. Resentment? Sadness? "Everything's always fine with you, huh?" he said gently. She didn't reply. And yet the next morning she found herself lingering near the lounge door, watching Maddie sketch Juno in a notebook. Something about that drawing. The raw lines, the strength in the scars, made Sienna feel something she hadn't in years. Like maybe, for once, she didn't want to be just fine. Chapter 5. Broken Leashes. The clinic's morning rhythm was broken by a phone call. Liam's voice, usually steady and full of good-natured sarcasm, sounded strained. "It's Maddie. She's collapsed. They took her to St. Bridget's." Sienna was already grabbing her coat. "I'll meet you there." When she arrived, Liam was pacing the hospital corridor, his hands deep in his hoodie pockets. The confident charm she'd grown used to was gone, replaced by something jagged and raw. "She passed out in school," he said. "They think it might be her heart again. She's had murmurs since she was little, but it's never been this bad." Sienna's eyes flicked to the closed door behind him. "Who's her cardiologist?" He hesitated. "We've been managing it through public clinics. The waiting list for a specialist is 6 months." Without a word, Sienna stepped inside and began typing into her phone. Within minutes, she'd arranged a private consultation with one of the city's top pediatric cardiologists. She didn't ask for permission. "I'm covering it," she said. "No arguments." Liam's jaw tightened. "Why?" "Because I can." His voice dropped to a sharp whisper. "Do you think that makes me feel better? You throwing your money at this like it's a sick puppy you can rescue?" Sienna, caught off guard, blinked. "It's not about that. It's about Maddie." "But you don't get it," he snapped. "You get to wave your hands and make things happen. Me? I've been fighting for her every damn day, scraping by, doing things I never thought I would, just to keep her safe. And now you swoop in like some savior." His words stung deeper than he knew. Sienna's voice, when it came, was low and trembling. "I wasn't trying to take that away from you." Liam looked away, his hands trembling. "She's all I have." The silence between them felt sharp, dangerous. Then, through the glass window of the hospital room, Maddie stirred. Liam bolted in without hesitation. His anger evaporated into worry. Sienna followed more slowly, her heart cracking open with something unfamiliar and difficult. Maddie blinked up at them, pale but smiling weakly. "Hey, did I miss something?" Liam squeezed her hand. "Nah, you just like making dramatic entrances." Sienna stood at the foot of the bed, quiet. Maddie looked between them, sensing something unspoken. "You two been fighting?" "Something like that," Liam said, glancing at Sienna. Sienna's phone buzzed again. Her mother, no doubt confirming Friday's dinner. She silenced it. Later, outside the hospital, the air was cold and still. Liam walked her to her car, his jaw still tight with lingering frustration. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "So am I," he replied. There was a pause. Then, without thinking, Sienna stepped forward and kissed him. It wasn't graceful or planned. It was impulsive and messy, born of fear and frustration and everything they couldn't say. Liam froze for half a second, then kissed her back, deeply, fiercely, like he was trying to memorize it. When they broke apart, breathless, Sienna whispered, "I don't know what this is." "Neither do I," Liam murmured, "but I think we just broke something we can't fix." They didn't speak again that night, but the damage and the connection was done. Chapter 6. Drawing Lines. The clinic was quiet under the pale wash of morning light, the stillness interrupted only by the soft thump of paws and the distant hum of a coffee machine. Sienna arrived earlier than usual. A restless energy coiled inside her chest. The kiss lingered like a phantom on her lips, unspoken, unresolved. She pushed open the back door to find Liam crouched in the alley behind the clinic, a paintbrush in his hand and streaks of colour smeared on his arms. A half-finished mural stretched across the back brick wall, a vivid explosion of animals in motion, dogs running, cats leaping, wings unfurling, in a sky of twilight. Sienna stared, stunned. "You did this?" Liam stood slowly, brushing his hands on his jeans. "Started it last night. Needed to clear my head." Her voice softened. "It's incredible." He shrugged, trying to play it off, but she saw the flicker of something in his eyes, an old pride buried under years of surviving instead of dreaming. "It was supposed to be my life," he admitted. "Art, design. Then Maddie got sick. And our mum, well, you know how that story ends. So I picked up a squeegee instead of a sketch pad." Sienna looked at the mural again. One of the painted animals, a wolf in mid-leap, seemed to look right back at her. Wild, free, everything that she wasn't. "Don't give up on it," she said quietly. Liam met her gaze. "Don't give up on whatever you're running from." Before she could answer, her phone buzzed with a call from the clinic board chair. She ignored it. Later that day, while she tended to a post-surgical pug, Sienna noticed something odd. An unfamiliar man loitering across the street, watching the building. She frowned, but said nothing. Probably just a curious passerby. But it happened again, 2 days later. A different man. Same spot, same stillness. That night, she checked the security cameras and found blurry footage, a tall figure, capped low, staring at the entrance before walking off into the dark. She made a note to have the locks changed. Meanwhile, Liam became a fixture at the clinic. He didn't push. He didn't mention the kiss, but his presence was everywhere, in the repaired fences, the clean gutters, the newly purring heater in exam room 2, and in the mural which grew beautiful, more beautiful, by the day. Sienna found herself lingering outside longer than she used to, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with excuses. She watched him paint, her fingers twitching with the unfamiliar urge to touch the colours he brought to life. But boundaries were her armour, and she wasn't ready to take it off. One evening, after most of the staff had left, she found him still painting, the sky above painted in real lavender and gold. "You're making this place beautiful," she said. He glanced at her. It was already beautiful, just hidden behind too many walls. Sienna turned away, unable to face the way his words hit too close. As she stepped back inside, neither of them noticed the shadow watching from across the street, not until the figure pulled out a camera. Click, click, click. Chapter 7. Exposed. The morning air was thick with tension. Sienna felt it the moment she stepped into the clinic. Conversations hushed when she passed. Linda from reception avoided her gaze. Jacob, normally eager and bumbling, kept his head down. Something was off. Her stomach knotted as she reached her office. An envelope sat on her desk. No name, no note, just cold silence inside the room as she opened it. Photographs spilled out. Candid shots. Her and Liam, in the alley behind the clinic, standing too close, laughing. One captured the faint ghost of a kiss, mid-moment, blurred and intimate. Another showed Liam asleep on the clinic couch with Maddie curled beside him, peaceful and safe. And finally, her, outside her townhouse, Liam at her side. She inhaled sharply. Her phone vibrated seconds later. "We need to talk, now. Charles." She hadn't spoken to her ex-fiancé in months, not since she ended their engagement after discovering his casual infidelity and ruthless ambition. Charles Monroe, heir to a pharmaceutical fortune and a man who believed in image over integrity. She met him at his office, a glass tower in the city's financial district. The moment she entered, she saw the smug curve of his lips. "I told you he was beneath you," he said, sliding a glossy magazine across the desk. There it was, a tabloid spread. Ice Queen's Secret Romance, the vet and the window cleaner. Sienna's stomach turned. "My PR team says it's manageable, for now," Charles continued. "But if you don't distance yourself, the clinic's board will push you out, and we both know your reputation is everything." Sienna's jaw tightened. "Did you do this?" He didn't flinch. "I simply gave the right people permission to look closer. You left me, Sienna. For nothing. For that." Her hands curled into fists. "You don't get to decide what's worth something." As she turned to leave, Charles added, "The board will be calling soon. Think carefully about your next move." Back at the clinic, whispers buzzed like static. Sienna locked herself in her office, staring at the article, the photos, the carefully constructed life she spent years building, now reduced to gossip and scandal. That evening, she found Liam in the alley, wiping paint off his hands. He looked up. "So, it's out?" She nodded. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I told myself I could keep my personal life separate, that no one would care, that I could control it," she said bitterly. "I was wrong." Liam stepped closer. "Tell me what you need. I'll disappear if it makes this easier for you." Something in her chest cracked. "Don't offer to vanish just because the world can't handle us." He didn't reply. Instead, he took her hand, quietly, gently. But Sienna pulled back. "I need space," she whispered, "just until this settles." Liam's eyes flickered with something, Hurt, perhaps, but he nodded. And as he walked away, the wall between them, once only glass, began to feel like stone. Chapter 8. The Gala. Sienna adjusted the diamond clasp on her navy silk gown, eyes fixed on her reflection. Flawless, composed, impeccably armoured. The annual Blake Foundation Gala was one of the city's most elite events, her mother's crown jewel, and the board's excuse to parade donors and policies around like show dogs. This year, Sienna had done something unthinkable. She had invited Liam. The clinic staff had buzzed for days, unsure if the rumours were true, but when Liam walked into the event, all doubts vanished. He wore a simple black suit. No designer labels, no pretense, yet he moved through the gilded ballroom like he belonged, because he didn't care if he didn't. Sienna saw him the moment he arrived. His presence struck her like a pulse beneath her skin, grounding and dangerous all at once. "You clean up nice," she said, approaching him with the rare softness in her voice. He smiled, eyes skimming her gown, then rising to meet hers. "So do you. Though I imagine you always look like this when threatening board members." She chuckled. It was the most she'd laughed in days. They barely had a moment before her mother descended. Pearls, political smiles, and a tone threatened with venom. "This must be the Liam I've heard so little about," Meredith Blake said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "Window cleaner by day, mystery by night?" Liam shook her hand without flinching. "And you must be the woman who schedules her daughter's dates like corporate mergers." The silence was thick, but Sienna smiled. As the evening unfolded, Liam was the centre of quiet curiosity. Guests whispered, some stared. Charles arrived, smug in his custom tuxedo, circling like a shark. He waited until Sienna was momentarily alone, then slid beside her with a glass of champagne. "I must admit, you've outdone yourself this year," Charles purred. "Bringing a charity case to a charity gala? Very poetic." Sienna turned to him slowly. "You're pathetic." But Liam had seen the exchange. He approached just as Charles leaned in too close. "Something wrong here?" Liam asked, voice calm, eyes hard. Charles smirked. "Ah, the tradesman speaks." The tension snapped light. Sienna stepped between them. "Liam, walk with me." She took his hand and pulled him through the ballroom, out onto the terrace, where string lights glowed against the night sky. "I didn't bring you here to be mocked," she said. "And I didn't come here to prove anything," he replied. "I came for you." There it was, that bare honesty that cut through all their defences. Inside, the band began playing something slow and sweeping. Liam extended a hand. "Dance with me." "I don't dance," she whispered. "You do tonight." She hesitated, then let him pull her close. They danced beneath the stars, the noise of the gala a distant hum. For those few minutes, there were no board members, no photographers, no class divide, just the warmth of his hand on her back and the sound of her heartbeat pounding in her ears. But even as they moved together, Sienna knew the storm hadn't passed. It had only paused to let her feel what it could cost. Chapter 9. The Kiss. Whispers bloomed like ivy through the clinic halls. It started with Linda from reception, who swore she saw it while sneaking out to toss the trash. A kiss, not tentative, not polite, but hungry and electric, exchanged just beyond the alley gate after the gala. Then came Jacob, who spotted Liam the next morning wearing the same suit pants and a suspicious grin. By midday, it wasn't just whispers, it was wildfire. Sienna knew the moment she stepped into the staff lounge. The room hushed. Linda offered a too sweet smile. Jacob nervously dropped a syringe. Even Pepper the retriever tilted her head like she'd caught wind of something spicy. Liam, meanwhile, was changing out an air filter in the back corridor, whistling like a man who had no idea he was on the edge of a scandal. "Sienna," Linda said, carefully, as she entered her office. "There's concern." "Concern?" Sienna repeated, already bracing herself. "The board called, twice." Sienna closed her eyes. Of course they had. The official statement was couched in polite phrasing. "Your personal associations are starting to reflect on the clinic's brand. Discretion would be appreciated." The subtext was louder. "End it, or we'll end you." When she spoke to Liam later, he wasn't surprised. "I knew this would happen. I just didn't think it'd hurt this much." Sienna folded her arms. "I never meant for it to be public." "We danced," he said, smiling sadly. "We kissed. Neither of us was hiding." She sat on the edge of the desk. "It was reckless." "It was real," he said. "For once, something in your life wasn't calculated, and now you're scared." Sienna didn't deny it. The board issued an ultimatum that evening: either restore the clinic's professional integrity or risk being replaced as medical director. She stared at the email for nearly an hour before closing her laptop and walking to the kennel area where Liam was quietly sketching Whiskey the kitten in his notebook. "Do you ever regret stepping into my world?" she asked softly. He looked up. "Only when I see you trying to erase me from it." There was silence behind them, heavy with choice. Then Liam added, "I got an offer." She blinked. "What kind of offer?" "An art gallery in Paris. They saw the mural. They want me to show a collection next month. It's legit." Sienna's breath caught. "That's amazing." "It is," he said, "but it's also terrifying, because it means leaving." Their eyes met across the quiet room. "And I don't know if I want to go if it means leaving you." Sienna looked down, fingers tightening around the kennel bars. "I can't ask for you to stay," she said. "I know." Neither moved, but the walls around them, the real ones and the ones inside, were trembling. The kiss that started it all had spread more than gossip. It had cracked open everything wide. Chapter 10. The Goodbye Plan. Paris hung between them, like a promise and a threat. Liam stood by the clinic's back door, an envelope clutched in his hand, his flight confirmation, gallery itinerary, and a letter from the curator calling his work visceral and moving. Sienna read it silently, her face betraying nothing, but her hand trembled slightly as she passed it back. "You should go," she said, voice level. Liam studied her. "You don't mean that." "I do." He stepped closer. "Then say it without looking like it's killing you." She opened her mouth, but no sound came. In truth, she had rehearsed the goodbye for days, told herself it was right, logical. She had the clinic, the board, a reputation to mend. He had a once-in-a-lifetime chance. They were from different worlds, and every time they collided, something cracked. But that didn't make it hurt less. They walked in silence through the clinic one last time, past the recovery room where Maddie had sketched Juno, past the mural, now complete, bold, wild, alive. Each brushstroke of Liam's heart visible on the brick wall. Maddie met them by the front counter, a stack of veterinary brochures in hand. "Thinking about volunteering after school," she said, shyly. Sienna's smile faltered. "You'd be great here." Liam hugged his sister, whispering something that made her tear up. As he turned to Sienna, Maddie hesitated, then said, "You're the first adult who saw me as something more than a burden." Sienna's eyes filled before she could stop them. "You're not a burden, Maddie. You're the reason he never gave up." Maddie ducked out to give them privacy. "I should go," Liam said. Sienna stepped forward. "Wait, there's something you don't know." She reached into her drawer and pulled out an old, creased photo. Her father, smiling in overalls, grease on his hands, a little girl on his shoulders. He was like you, rough round the edges, kind, working class. My mother hated it, said he'd dragged the family name down. One day, he disappeared. She said he walked out, but her voice caught. But I always wondered if he was pushed. Liam gently took the photo. Why are you telling me this now? Because I didn't want you to leave thinking you were the problem. You're not. It's this world. It devours anything that doesn't fit the mold. He looked at her like he wanted to kiss her, like he didn't trust himself not to stay if he did. Instead, he said, if you ever want to break the mold, I'll be in Paris, painting. He walked out with the envelope still in hand. And Sienna stood frozen, surrounded by the life she'd built. Flawless, stable, suffocating. Only later, when she returned to her office, did she notice Maddie's sketchbook left behind on the chair. She opened it. Inside was a charcoal drawing of a man in overalls, holding a little girl on his shoulders. And behind it, scrawled in pencil, sometimes the ones who disappear leave pieces of themselves behind. Sienna closed the book, and for the first time in years, she cried. Chapter 11. Ghosts and Guilt. Sienna sat alone in her townhouse, the walls too quiet, the air too still. The fire crackled in the hearth, untouched tea cooling beside her. Maddie's sketchbook lay open in her lap, page after page of drawings, raw with emotion. The clinic, Liam's mural, Juno, and always that man in overalls, her father. She turned again to the old photograph she'd shown Liam. Her fingers traced her father's smile, warm, genuine, full of life. She couldn't remember the sound of his voice anymore, but she remembered how safe his arms felt. Then one day he was gone, and her mother, cold, precise, unapologetic, refused to speak of it. But now a crack had opened in that silence. Fueled by sleeplessness and the ache of everything unresolved, Sienna went digging. Old files, newspaper clippings, business records buried deep within the Blake Foundation archives. And there it was, his name, handwritten on a contractor log dated 20 years ago. Vincent Blake, site foreman, construction halted due to internal conflict. The address listed? Carter and Sons Restoration Company. Her breath caught. Liam's family. The next day, she tracked down the business. Long closed, but city permits had archived the files. Slowly, a story emerged. Her father had overseen a controversial low-income housing project, one that had been abruptly shut down due to safety concerns. But buried in the reports was an unsigned whistleblower letter accusing the foundation of deliberately cutting corners to increase profit margins and pinning the blame on a single foreman, Vincent Blake. The name of the informant wasn't listed, but Sienna had a suspicion. She found herself at Liam and Maddie's old walk-up, clutching the file folder like a lifeline. But they were gone. Paris, the landlord told her, left 2 days ago. The ground beneath her shifted. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Liam stood in a sunlit Parisian gallery surrounded by his work, canvases alive with motion and colour, haunted by a quiet longing. Art critics praised him. Gallery patrons offered handshakes and contracts. But none of it touched the part of him that still ached. He stared at a canvas he'd titled Reflections, a woman in a window, half-shadowed, half-glass, watching a world she could never quite touch. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Back in London, Sienna sat in the alley behind the clinic, staring at the mural. Her fingers traced the painted edge of a fox leaping into the unknown. So many truths had been buried to protect the illusion of power. Her mother, the foundation, her own silence. She finally understood why Liam walked away and why her father never got to. And just as the first stars blinked into the sky, she whispered aloud, "I'm not done. Not yet." Because ghosts didn't just haunt the past. Sometimes they demanded justice in the present. Chapter 12. Shattered Glass. The clinic smelled of lavender disinfectant and tension. Sienna moved through the halls like a ghost, her heels quiet on the tile. The file folder she'd uncovered about her father weighed heavy in her bag, its contents a dangerous truth, one that, if exposed, could shatter the Blake Foundation and her mother's social empire. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the truth. For Liam, for Maddie, for herself. She barely had time to gather her thoughts when her phone buzzed. It's Maddie. She collapsed again. We're at King's Cross General. Nurse Emma, clinic staff. Sienna's heart stopped. Within moments she was racing through the hospital corridors, breath sharp, guilt even sharper. Maddie lay pale across crisp white bedsheets, her thin arms hooked to machines that beeped in rhythm with her fragile heartbeat. Liam was already there, his flight back from Paris rushed and chaotic. His hair was windswept, his jacket still dusted with charcoal. He looked up as she entered, angry and worry battling in his eyes. "What happened?" she asked. Her heart, same thing, only worse. His voice was hollow. "The specialist says she needs a procedure. Soon. I can cover—" "No," he said firmly. "I already accepted your help once. I'm not here for the money." She sat down beside Maddie, her voice breaking. "Then why are you here?" Liam looked at her, eyes tired and stormy. "Because she asked for you." That night, after the surgery was scheduled and Maddie finally slept, they sat together in the hospital corridor. Sienna told him about her father, the whistleblower letter, the Blake Foundation's corruption. "They destroyed him," she whispered, "and my mother let them." Liam's jaw clenched. "My dad used to talk about a man named Vince. Said he tried to fight back, but it was all buried. I never knew." "It was your dad who signed the letter," she said. "He tried to protect mine." Liam was silent. When they returned to the clinic the next morning, the front door was wide open. Inside, chaos. Files were tossed across the floor, medical equipment overturned, shelves ransacked. The mural out back, defaced with black spray paint. One word slashed across it: traitor. Jacob found the security footage first. Grainy video of a hooded figure, face turned away from the cameras, slipping inside just after midnight. But Sienna didn't need a clearer image. Her gut already knew. "Charles," she said. Liam stared at the wreckage, his jaw locked tight. He's still watching, still trying to control what he thinks he owns. "Not anymore," she said. "He wanted war, he just got one." As they stood amid the shattered glass and ruined paint, something new settled between them. Not romance, not yet. Something sharper, a shared resolve. Chapter 13. Reflections in Blood. The clinic lights flickered as emergency electricians scrambled to repair the vandalism. Outside, the mural was cordoned off with caution tape, its once vivid colours now slashed with jet black strokes that dripped like open wounds. Sienna stood at the window of her office, arms crossed, gaze steady. She wasn't grieving the damage, she was studying it, like evidence at a crime scene. She turned to Liam. "We report him, we go to the press, the board, the foundation, we blow it open." Liam shook his head. "You do that, and your entire career could go down with it." "My career was built on silence I never consented to. Let it burn." He stared at her. This woman who once flinched at chaos, now daring to walk through the fire. That night, while the rest of the city slept, Sienna drove to Charles's penthouse, a sleek fortress of wealth perched over the Thames. She wasn't afraid. She was done being afraid. He opened the door shirtless, wineglass in hand, mock surprise flickering in his eyes. "I wondered how long it would take." She walked in without invitation. "I know everything. The whistleblower, the framing of my father, the vandalism." Charles raised a brow. "Bold accusations, Sienna." She pulled out a flash drive from her pocket. with video evidence of your hired thug breaking into my clinic, caught from the rear alley camera, the one you didn't know about." He stiffened. Her voice turned cold. "I will go public. I will take the board, the foundation, and your family name with it." "You'd ruin yourself in the process." "I'm already ruined," she said. "Now I'm just choosing who I become next." He stepped forward suddenly, grabbing her arm. "You always did have a martyr complex." In a flash, Sienna twisted free, slamming his wine glass to the floor, shards flying. "Try that again, and I'll show you exactly how sharp I've become." Behind her, the elevator chimed, and Liam burst through the doors, breathless, wild-eyed. He saw the broken glass, the look on her face, the bruising grip on her arm. Without a word, he crossed the room and punched Charles hard across the jaw. Charles staggered, hit the wall, and slid down in silence. Liam stood over him, chest heaving. "Come near her or Maddie again, and I won't stop at a warning." Sienna placed her hand on Liam's arm, not to pull him away, but to steady herself. They left together, the penthouse behind them silent and dark. Back at the clinic, the power had returned. But the lights inside Sienna felt different. No more glass between them, no more walls. They stood in front of the ruined mural, side by side. Liam reached down, picked up a can of paint, and without a word, began to restore the sky. "I'm not leaving," he said. "Not again." Sienna leaned against the wall and watched him work. Her heart, once hidden behind years of walls, began to beat just a little louder, and for the first time in her life, she didn't care who heard it. Chapter 14. Clearer than ever. The board meeting was held in a wood-panelled conference room high above the city, sterile, intimidating, and thick with expectation. Sienna entered in a simple grey suit, no jewellery, no makeup, her hair tied back in a clean knot. She didn't need polish today. She needed power. 12 board members sat across from her, eyes sharp, expressions unreadable. Dr. Langley, the chair, cleared his throat. "Dr. Blake, in light of the recent publicity, we'd like to discuss your position at the clinic. Your personal choices have created tension among donors and questions about your judgment." Sienna cut him off. "My judgment has kept this clinic afloat for 10 years. My personal life has never interfered with the care of a single patient. But since we're being honest, maybe it's time we talk about what really threatens this place." She reached into her bag and pulled out the file. The one with her father's name, the whistleblower's letter, the evidence of the Blake Foundation's corruption, the copies she'd already sent to every major news outlet in the city. She slid the file across the table. "The clinic was built on money laundered through a housing project that led to my father's death, covered up by my family, protected by this board." The silence was absolute. "If you want my resignation, take it now. But know this, when the press calls, I won't lie to protect any of you." One by one, the board members looked away. Dr. Langley coughed, but this time his voice was thin. We'll need some time to review these documents." "No," Sienna said. "You had decades." She stood, calming, unflinching, and walked out without looking back. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter, sharper. She didn't need their approval anymore. She had chosen something else. Freedom. She returned to the clinic to find Liam fixing a broken vent in the recovery room. Maddie sat nearby, sketching a new version of the mural, this one brighter, freer, filled with movement. "I quit," Sienna said. Liam dropped the screwdriver. "You what?" "I stepped down from everything. The board, the foundation, all of it." He blinked. "What happens now?" "I don't know," she said, honestly. "But I'm not hiding any more. I'm not polishing the truth for anyone, not even you." She stepped closer, her voice quieter. "I love you, Liam. I loved you when I told you to go. I loved you when I pretended I didn't." Liam stared at her for a long moment, then took her face in his paint-streaked hands and kissed her, deep and certain, like a man who had been waiting to breathe. When they broke apart, he hesitated. "There's something you don't know," he said, quietly. Sienna tensed. "What?" Liam reached into his satchel and pulled out a folded envelope, its edges worn. "It's from your father, to mine. I found it in a storage box after Maddie got sick." She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter, Vincent Blake's final words, and within it the truth neither of them had been ready for. Her breath hitched, and Liam said the words before she could speak them. "Your father didn't walk away. He died saving mine." The glass between them didn't just crack, it shattered, and what stood in its place was something raw, terrible, and beautiful. The truth. Chapter 15. Through the Glass Forever. The wind whispered slowly through the alley behind the clinic, where morning sun caught the glint of fresh paint and the murmur of two hearts standing side by side. Sienna stood in front of the mural, restored, reborn. The colours were bolder now, less careful, more alive. The black spray paint had been covered, not erased, woven into the backdrop like scars that no longer needed hiding. She turned the letter from her father over in her hands one last time. The ink had faded, but the words never would. "If this gets to you, I want you to know, fighting for what's right cost me everything, but I'd do it again. I see the fire in you, burn brighter than I ever could, and never let them tame you." Tears clung to her lashes, but didn't fall. Liam stood beside her, silent but solid. His eyes, normally playful, were solemn now. "I always wondered why my dad refused to talk about that project. He carried the guilt for years." "He shouldn't have," Sienna said. "None of it was his fault." She looked over at him. "And neither was loving me." He smiled faintly. "That one's definitely my fault." They laughed, the sound quiet and real. Later that afternoon, Maddie sat cross-legged in the reception area, sketchbook open, pets curled around her like a throne of fur. She was humming, safe, healing, herself. Jacob passed by, shaking his head. "You know, she's got this whole clinic under her thumb." "She's earned it," Sienna replied, smiling. The board had gone silent. The press had picked up the story, and in the fallout, donations surged, not for the Blake Foundation, but for a new project, a community wellness clinic. Not one tied to profit or politics, one she and Liam would build together. Sienna no longer wore her power like armor. It was quieter now, rooted in purpose, honest. Outside, behind the mural, Liam added the final stroke to a new section. A woman, arms outstretched, glass shards behind her, light in front of her. Her face was unmistakable. Sienna stepped outside beside him, lips parted slightly. "Is that supposed to be me?" He stepped back and studied it. "It was always you." They stood for a long moment, neither speaking, both knowing. Then, with a smile that was part challenge, part surrender, she whispered, "So, what do we build first?" Liam leaned in and kissed her, slow and certain, the kind that didn't ask for permission, only promised forever. Around them the clinic stirred. Life moved, love lingered. The glass that once separated their worlds had shattered. Now there was only sky.